It's 6:30 Eastern. The Lakers are trying to stay alive as LeBron James's legacy hangs in the balance or something. The Portland Trailblazers trying to stay alive as well versus the MVP Nikola Jokic after Dame's 55 fell short. And we've got every single betting angle you can possibly think of. We're ready to cover for you here on Heat Check. I'm Matt Moore from the Action Network, senior NBA writer, joined by Raheem Palmer and Chris Raybon to bring you everything that you need to know about tonight's action in the NBA and the two playoff games, game sixes, as the first round heads towards its conclusion. Gents, we have a really great slate tonight. Obviously, the Suns and the Lakers. LeBron AD is maybe going to play, probably, maybe. The Blazers are trying to stay alive here. But I wanted to go real quick to a prop that we've got on BetMGM, the official provider for this podcast, presented by BetMGM. I've got a question for you. So the division of the winning team to win the Western Conference. Okay, that prop is up over at BetMGM. The Northwest Division, which is obviously the Jazz, the Nuggets, and the Blazers, is minus 125. The Pacific Division is plus 120. That's Suns, Lakers, and Clippers. And Southwest Division, the Mavericks, plus 1,200. Let's go around and let's talk about which of these props you would take on a bet to win the Western Conference. Raheem Palmer, which of these numbers do you like?
I'm going with the Pacific Division. I mean, when you look at the fact that the Lakers, the Suns, and the Clippers are all in the same division, and to me, the Lakers, if they get through the Suns, they're going to be favorites over, whoever they play next. And then if the Clippers get through the Mavericks, they're going to be favorites over possibly the Jazz. So for me, I think that gives them the value. And then also I look at the Suns. To me, I think they can beat the Jazz. So to me, that's the best division in basketball. At least on the Western Conference. So I got to roll with them. And then I think you can't count out LeBron. I mean, the fact that LeBron plays in the Pacific Division and they play with the Lakers, they're the favorite to get out, if they beat the Suns. So I'm rolling with that.
I like how it doesn't matter what the situation is. We're all still like, yeah, but LeBron, though. Like, no matter what the situation is. Like, LeBron's down 3-2. Anthony Davis is hanging by a thread. KCP's banged up. LeBron's got a bad ankle. Nothing's going right. Dennis Schroeder removed the Lakers from his Instagram profile. Their pets' heads are falling off. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. And yet we're still like, yeah, but LeBron, though. And that's like really what it does come down to. Chris Raybon, which of these do you like? I assume you got to take the Jazz here, right?
Nah, I'm not going with these short odds for either one. I mean, I don't think you're really getting any value. There's obviously, three teams each way that could potentially come out of the West, but give me the long odds with the Southwest Division. I think people are sleeping on the Mavericks up 3-2 against the Clippers. Let's not forget, coming into this whole thing, everyone had the Lakers or the Clippers. So it's not, everyone's ragging on the Clippers, Paul George, all these fouls, this, that. But the bottom line is the Mavericks have gotten some quality wins, and they have two things I want in a long shot bet. Number one, they've proven able to win on the road against a really tough opponent, 3 times already. And number two, they could potentially have the best player left. If LeBron in the doesn't come out of this series with Phoenix, the Mavericks and the Mavericks can beat the Clippers and handle them. The Mavericks will have the best player left in the Western Conference, and that includes any matchups they would face. So give me the long shot for the team that can win on the road and may just have the best player on the floor, going forward.
Okay, well, hang on there. Let's say that somehow the Blazers or the Nuggets get past the Suns if the Suns were to advance. I'm not going to say they're going to get past the Lakers. Do you think Luka Doncic should be the best player in the series with Nikola Jokic or Damian Lillard?
I think it's very possible he could be. Like, I think Jokic and Lillard, like, they're just playing unbelievable. But they're trading so many blows that, I mean, that series could just be a dogfight. So I'm just kind of betting on the fact that there's a very real possibility that it's not the top one, definitely the top two. And the way it's going right now, in a matchup with the Jazz in the next round, I think they would have the best player there. So, if by the time the Mavericks could pass the Jazz, those odds would be totally different. Right. So, even if it's just for the round two, I think the Mavericks have a very real chance to have the best player on the floor.
All right, I'm going to go with the Pacific with Raheem. I just think, for me, honestly, I think the Suns are hugely undervalued here. Like, look, if the Lakers come out of the series, everything is going to flip on its head, and it's going to be like, oh, no, the champs are back, and, like, now the door is really open because they do get Portland, who obviously can't stop anybody, or Denver without 3 of its top 5 guards, including Jamal Murray. Like, the door definitely just blows wide open as long as the Lakers can get out of this series down 3-2. But if it's the Suns, look, the Suns, I think the tougher matchup is with Denver. If it's Portland, I think the Suns absolutely stomp them. And then the Suns go to the Western Conference Finals. I like them in either matchup. The Clippers did well against them in the regular season. But honestly, I think the Suns are learning something about how to play playoff basketball. And we know that we can't trust the Clippers. Like we've seen it throughout this series. Meanwhile, if it's Dallas and Utah, I don't have a lot of faith in either of those teams. And I love Phoenix versus either one of those teams. So with the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Suns, there's too much value. Get a plus number. I think that's actually really good value. I'm actually going to bet that after we get off this program on Heat Check, presented by BetMGM. Let's go to the big bet. The big bet of the night. You got one spread or one total for each of you. You get to pick one bet to make tonight. Raheem, Palmer, where are you going between these two games?
Okay, I know I'm fading the world because 70% of the public is on the Portland Trailblazers tonight. I'm going with the Denver Nuggets +5. They might even win this game outright. Don't be surprised. I mean, my model makes this game Portland -2. To me, these two teams are evenly matched, even with the Nuggets missing Jamal Murray, Will Barton, and PJ Dozier. I mean, the Nuggets have an offensive rating of 121 in this series. The Blazers have an offensive rating of 122. I don't understand why they're laying 5 points to this Nuggets team. They can't stop anybody inside. Nurkic, is it worth it? Yusuf Nurkic. He's fouled out in 3 games this year. This playoff series. He can't stop Jokic. He's averaging 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists. When I look at this Blazers team, I think the big difference between these two teams is that the Nuggets have a balanced offense. They can score outside, they can score inside. The Blazers are highly dependent on three-point shooting. They're shooting 41.8% of their field goals from behind the arc. They're coming off a double overtime game, and they're going to have to make shots. I mean, the role players, I don't see Damian Lillard putting up 55 points and 10 assists again. And the Nuggets still won that game. So I think the 5 points is too many points. When you look at these two teams, I mean, the Nuggets are dominating the second chance points. They're getting 17.6 second chance points a game facing the Blazers, who are 15th and second chance points among NBA playoff teams. So give me the Nuggets here +5. They probably win this game outright as well.
So I like taking the points. I do think the spread is a little high. I'm on Blazers tonight and don't feel great about it. I think there's a couple of things here. One, Lillard's record after dropping 30 plus, 35 plus, 40 plus, it gets progressively worse. After he has monster games, the Blazers actually have not performed well. Now, they've been underdogs in most of those games and they're favorites here. I think that has to factor in. A lot of this is very narrative-y stuff. And like, I will definitely admit to betting that way in terms of, look, I can't see the Blazers losing at home in an elimination game to a team without 3 guards. Look, you mentioned that the Nuggets have a balanced offense. They can score inside and outside. The outside stuff is what's really surprising, is that Austin Rivers is lighting them up. Like, they're still getting shots from Facu Campazzo. Monte Morris had 28 points in the last game, but CJ McCollum's been bad in this series. I think it's unlikely from a probability standpoint that he's going to have a bad game throughout this series, given how much of an advantage he has in some of the matchup situations because of how they have to guard Dame. Powell has played really well at home, not as well on the road. And you mentioned Nurkic. I think that's got to be a big part of this. I think Nurkic stays out of foul trouble, especially in this game. Home game, I think it's unlikely to rely on Nurkic getting in foul trouble. I like the points because I do like the model, especially with you saying that it's Blazers -2. That's 3 points extra. I agree with you on that, but I can't go with you on winning outright.
Yeah, I think you got to take a shot. I mean, sometimes, if the model's off 3 points from the rest of the market, and I think they're going to cover the 5, I think that gives them a good chance of winning. Now, the Blazers, we all know the Blazers should win this game, but it's just more of a math play.
All right, Chris Raybon, what do you got?
I'm going with the Los Angeles Lakers -1 in the first half against the Phoenix Suns. Coming off that Game 5 debacle in Phoenix, the Lakers are back at home. Phoenix, another team that doesn't play quite as well on the road. Their first half margin this season was 3.8 points worse on the road than it was at home. And we all know LeBron's record in the first round, 14-0 straight up. Now, I don't know. We talked about it earlier. I don't know if they get past Phoenix. I think it's going to be tough. This is, especially with the Lakers not at full health, even if AD does play, I think he's not going to be 100%. It's going to be a tough series, but I just think the way the first half went, when everything went wrong for the Lakers after, the first maybe 3-4 minutes of the game in that first half, LeBron coming home, the way he kind of walked off the court, you just know he's going to come out inspired. I think I don't think the role players will be quite as passive in this game. I know that was kind of really ticking LeBron off. Schroeder especially passed up a bunch of shots early in that game. So I just think everyone's going to play better. Shots are going to fall. LeBron's going to really put this team on his back. He didn't play well either in the game last week, in the game 5. So all things considered, Lakers are a slight favorite for the game. I think they definitely win the first half, and then we'll see how it goes, especially if AD starts. How long does he go in the game? I don't know. So I like him in the first half to come out inspired. But it gets a little muddier when you start looking down the road. Can they win the game? Can they win game 7 in advance?
Is that 3.8 margin regular season or playoffs?
It's all everything. So just they're 3.8 points better at home, versus the opponent than they are when they go on a road.
In the first half. Okay. I hate this bet. I hate it. I hate it so much. So the Lakers have been outscored in the first half by 4 or more points in 4 of the 6 games in the first half. This follows the trend of this entire season. The Lakers start slow and they wear you down over the course of the game. Like, as a guy that's bet a lot of first halves, especially, I think with AD not being 100%, LeBron not being 100%, I have a hard time being like, okay, they're really going to come out and put the foot down immediately. I can see it happening. I'm not saying that it's like absolutely 100% you're crazy. I can absolutely see you winning this bet, right? It's a first half bet. It's only a point. They've only got covered by a point. But in general, like, the Suns have been really good in first halves over the course of the year. The home road split, though, is interesting. I'll give you that. Like, I hadn't actually thought about that perspective, because one thing to kind of think about there is the Suns have had fans in their arena the second longest of any team in the league outside of the Jazz. So that would kind of, this plays into it, right? Like, they've had fans in their arenas, which has given them a first half push, versus being on the road is much tougher, especially with their, being fans in the arenas again. Just in general, I tend to think that this is the first half. I like the Lakers for the game. I'm on the Lakers for the game. I think I like how everything else you said. I think the first half play is overcomplicating it. Just take them for the game. LeBron's not going to fall to the Suns in 6 games. That's not happening, Chris.
I like everyone likes to bet these game 3s, the team goes down 2-0. And like, I think sometimes we don't look at the matchups. Like I thought that, Miami coming out in that first half, I think it was in game 3, they were clearly overmatched, but they're a popular play. I just think here, these teams match up pretty evenly. I think it's just the fact that, for me, book it. Like a team led by LeBron playing like that in that kind of game, coming home now, this is where I want to back them early. But again, it's like, I don't trust the Lakers to close out the game the way we used to, because there still are questions about their supporting cast. There are questions about how long AD can go, even if he starts. So it's not going to follow the trends for the full season for the Lakers, but it does for the Suns. And I just think emotional and motivation wise, narrative street, whatever you want to call it, big edge for the Lakers here at home early in the game.
All right. Well, I hope so, because I've got Lakers for the full game, and winning the first half would help me in that direction. I'm taking Nuggets Blazers first half total over 117.5. You can find this at 115.5 at certain places, but it's 117.5 at BetMGM. So here's kind of the key in this. I talked about in Raheem's bet pick about how I don't think Nurkic is going to get in foul trouble. In the first half in particular, he gets to play more because he doesn't get in foul trouble. So in the first half, Nurkic has a 129.8 offensive rating first half. Like, he has been able to actually get buckets. Everyone kind of thinks that the impact has been defensively. He's got a 112 on-court defensive rating. The Nuggets are still scoring fine when Nurkic is on court, but the Blazers are scoring better when Yusuf Nurkic has been on the floor. So that actually has been kind of a bigger differential. Nurkic, they've won the minutes with Nurkic in this series, and they know that they have to play him more in an elimination game setting. As long as he doesn't get in foul trouble, knock on wood, I think the Blazers put up a big number in this first half, and I don't think they can stop Denver. Meanwhile, in any minute that Enes Kanter plays, which he's more likely to play in the first half than the second, because if it goes as badly as it has, Stotts is going to have to remove him from the rotation entirely in the second half, and we've seen that over the course of the last 2 games. With Kanter on the floor, The Nuggets have a 124.8 offensive rating. They are absolutely crushing it. With Jokic on the floor, that gets even better. Cantor can't do anything. The old thing from the Thunder, Cantor can't play. Can't play Cantor. You cannot play Cantor in this series. It has been an abject disaster. The Blazers know that, but they're still going to have to buy time because they can't play Nurkic. He gets exhausted. So they have to bring somebody in. They'll probably go small ball in the second half, playing either Robert Covington, Carmelo Anthony together, or going to Rondae Hollis Jefferson. I can't imagine them playing Cantor in the second half of an elimination game. But first half, yeah, the first half over in this series is 4-1. And that kind of matches. And if you want to know, like, okay, so what about the trends for the entire game? The last two games, the scoring has dramatically dropped off second half because they're exhausted. Like, even going to double overtime, both these teams are having to take the entire possession. They can't stop one another, but they're absolutely gassed. Like, they are exhausted from this series. So I love the first half total over with it wearing down in the second half. I like first half total over 117 and a half.
I think it's interesting because I do agree. I don't think the number has quite adjusted. The closing totals have been around, 227, and four of the 5 games have gone over, I believe, too, right? So I don't think the numbers have adjusted. The only thing I would say is I don't think the full game is that bad of a bet either if you're betting over, just because it's been such a close series that you get that little added boost if there's an overtime. You also get that little added boost where it's like right now the Blazers are, as Raheem mentioned, probably a little inflated on the number. And so if they struggle a little more than we think they will, or than the market does, you're going to get that Dame Lillard just kind of tossing up threes to try to get him, keep him in it or get him back in it late in the game. So I like the first half total is 117 and a half. The second half, I believe, is about 110 or 109 and a half. So I think that if you're betting first half, you may as well just go full game as well.
So I think part of my concern is game 4, right? Where the Nuggets missed some shots early and we're basically like, we're done. Like, okay. And the Blazers ran up a big number. They still, the under hit in that first half in that game, but I can also see that happening later on in the game. Like, there's a very higher propensity for the Nuggets to basically be like, all right, we'll get them in 7. Like, you cannot go full tilt in this game if you're Denver. The players won't. Malone will want them to, but the players can't because they know, like, okay, yes, they won this one. We're still got the edge. We're going back to Denver. We'll get them in 7, even though they lost in game 7 last time. I have some concerns about that. So I'm staying away. I actually lean a little bit towards the under for the full game because of the stuff that I talked about, but I could see your point there. Let's go to the wheel. Every week, we have a random number of props selected. We prep for all of them. And depending on where it lands, we have to make the case for the over or the under. Raheem Palmer, we're going to start with you. Are you ready for the wheel?
I'm born ready. Let's go.
Evan Abrams, producer, spin the wheel. All right. Chris Paul, points and rebounds, 18 and a half. What do you like, Raheem?
I'm going to go under. Chris Paul's really been struggling since that shoulder injury. He's averaging just 9.4 points a game on 46.7 true shooting percentage. And he's only grabbing about 3.8 rebounds a game. I mean, you got a lot of big guys out there. You got Ayton out there. You got Drummond out there. You got possibly Anthony Davis out there and LeBron. So I'm not expecting him to get a lot of rebounds. And he's not really pushing for his shot right now. He's not really hitting free throws. So let's go under.
I like it. I think it's a lot of this. Everything with this game depends on if Anthony Davis plays or not. Everything. If Davis does not play, I like Chris Paul and Devin Booker overs. If Anthony Davis does play, I like their unders. He literally determines whether I want to bet. And I'm going to bet either side once the word is out on Anthony Davis.
I think one of the key things about this game is I think this game has blowout potential either way. Okay. I mean, when you look at the last game, Chris Paul is really only playing about 20 minutes per game.
Right.
In each of these games. I mean, we had multiple blowouts. I mean, obviously he's gotten hurt. So if the Lakers are up, we could see him come out of this game early and get prepared for game 7. And then vice versa, if the Suns are up, we could see him come out. So I don't think he's going to play 30, 40 minutes tonight.
All right. I like that angle quite a bit. Chris Raybon, are you ready for the wheel?
You already know.
All right. Let's spin that, Evan. All right, Michael Porter Jr., points, rebounds, and assists, 29 and a half, Raybon.
I definitely like this under. Michael Porter for the series averaging about 25 and a half combined 17, 7, and an assist. He's been under 3 of the 5 games, both on the road. And I think, you come off a big game at home, what was it, 26 and 12, just a big performance. I think that this number is going to be a little bit inflated, but I do expect Denver to struggle a little more on the road in this matchup. I think they cool off, and I think Porter's going to be a part of that. Still a young player, still struggles for consistency, I think, on a night-to-night basis. So just one of those guys that, I expect Jokic to show up night in, night out, but the supporting cast for Denver, which has been excellent. But even with that, Porter under in 3 out of 5, and that's with that overtime game. So yeah, I'm just kind of betting on, maybe we get a blowout. Maybe Denver just struggles on the road a little more with their shooting. There's a bunch of different avenues for Porter to get to this. And he also, I know Matt, you pointed out that his rebounding numbers had been down for the most part until that last game where he got into the double digits. So a lot of avenues, I think, to get under this number.
I mean, if there's one thing that in film, Terry Stotts is just going to be like, what are you guys doing? Like, you can talk about tactical adjustments and coverage and all this, but Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. just flat out jump dudes. Like, Robert Covington is going to have been like embarrassed by that film study. And so, like, I think he probably rebounds better. Like I said, if Nurkic is on the floor, he rebounds better. And so if we assume that MPJ goes back to where he was, also, I think there are going to be fewer defensive rebounds because, like I said, I think the Blazers are probably going to score pretty well in this game. And if they score pretty well in this game, there's fewer rebound opportunities for MPJ. I think there's also the possibility of it, like, if Denver doesn't hang in this game, and Raheem likes it, but if Denver doesn't hang, they're absolutely going to rest guys going into in that fourth quarter and just be like, all right, if they're down double digits late, they'll pull it and just get ready for game 7. No reason to risk an injury. That can limit his minutes. That can limit his exposure there. The assists are obviously not a concern because once that guy catches the ball, he's going to shoot. He should. He's a really great scorer, but I like this one quite a bit. All right, Evan, I need my wheel. Are you ready? Let's spin mine. And all right, Devin Booker, points and assists, 32.5. I love the under spot here. Okay, so Raheem's whole point about this being a blowout even makes me like this even more. So I've looked this up today because I was curious. I'm figuring Anthony Davis is going to play. There was a report from Chris Haynes yesterday that he was optimistic about playing. He spoke with the media and said he felt like he could play and he was hopeful to play. Whether he plays more than 5 minutes and gets injured again and then goes out again, but at some level, if you're going to bet anything with the Lakers, you're going to have to kind of factor that in. Here's a big thing. With Booker on the floor and Anthony Davis on the court, the Lakers change up their coverage. Booker doesn't attack Anthony Davis, but what it does is with Andre Drummond on the floor, Drummond can play further up versus Booker and challenge him at the point of the screen because he's got Anthony Davis on the weak side, able to protect the rim. They can play more aggressive. When AD's not out there, the Lakers are dropping, which means Booker is absolutely tearing them up. Booker's shooting 40% from the field and 26% from 3 with AD on court in this series. 40% from the field, 26% from 3. And if you put more pressure at the level of the screen, those passes are harder, which means they wind up going higher, which gives the defender more time to adjust. That limits your assists. Like, there's a bunch of tactical stuff in this that leads towards the under on points and assists. The Lakers are playing up to touch. That means like putting 2 on the ball at the level of the screen 80% of the time with Booker on the court and AD on the court. So this is, I think, if AD plays, that's the biggest area where this shifts back the other way. Is Booker has had big games when AD's been limited. If AD plays in this game, I think Booker struggles. So I'm going to take the under on Devin Booker points and assists, 32.5. All right. Last segment, there's no axiom in betting. It says that you got to fade the public, but our audience tends to be a little bit smarter. They've done very well in our polls. We put out a poll every week asking you about a specific bet. And tonight we are going back to Dame time. After 55 points on 24 shots, we asked, how many points is Dame going to score tonight? His over under is 33.5. And the over one was 78% of the vote. The people love them some Dame time, even though he lost the game. So, Raheem Palmer, I ask you, are you a man of the people? Will you stand with them in Dame time? Or are you a nemesis of the people and going under?
I'm a nemesis. I'm going to fade the public. I think one of the things, I saw last game is that CJ McCollum struggled, Norman Powell struggled, and Dame can't do it alone. He scored 55 points and had 10 assists, in a loss. So I know he's going to come out and try to get those other guys involved because he can't do it alone. In addition, when you look at Lillard in closeout games, he's averaging 25 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 6.9 assists on just 42% shooting from the field. So he hasn't been, Dame time hasn't always showed up in elimination games. So I think he's going to have a good game, but I think 33.5 is a little too high coming off a game in which he scored 55 in double overtime. And I think the odds makers know that, and they're always going to adjust. So I'm going to go under.
All right, Chris Raybon, are you a man of the people? Do you support Dame time?
I'm going with the people here, Matt. I think you look at Dame, and yeah, they kind of shut down the role players. The role players struggled. Dame had 55, but guess what? The Blazers lost the game. The Nuggets won the game. So that strategy, even though Dame went crazy, it worked for them. And can Dame hit 3 after 3 after 3 again? I don't know, but he's been over 33.5 in 4 of the 5 games in this series. It's been a close series. I think you could get to the last couple of minutes of the game, and unless it's an absolute blowout, Dame could have like 24, 25 and get over this number. So at this point, and believe me, Raheem, Dame knows about these closeout game numbers. Like that was the whole thing. He took the onus upon himself late in the season. He's got to do better. He's got to step up. I think this is another one of those games where he's going to look at it and say, okay, I was scoring what in closeout game? Okay. And I think he's going to come out and put up a big number again. I think Denver takes their chances with that happening again. And we just see Dame time once again for the 5th time in 6 games in the series.
All right, I'm going to go under. I'm going to be a nemesis of the people. And the reason is we got to look at the range of outcomes here. So there's a scenario where the Blazers come out and just blow the doors off like game 4. And the Nuggets are just like, all right, we'll get to game 7 and try and win in Denver. Not advisable after 2019, but it's definitely possible. And in that situation, Dame doesn't play much of the 4th quarter and he hits the under. There's also a situation where the Nuggets are in this and it's tight and they have a chance to close it out. And they put Aaron Gordon on him, which they did not do much of. I noticed that in game 5, they are saving that. Like that is not oh yeah, let's go ahead and just give somebody else a shot at it. Let's have Austin Rivers just get absolutely roasted. They're saving Gordon because they know that it worked and they don't want him comfortable versus Gordon. After the success that they had in game 2, they went back to different coverages on him. Like they are clearly saving this for the right moment and they might use it tonight. And Lillard really struggled versus Gordon in those situations. I think that they'll probably play a little bit more aggressive up at the level than they did in game 5. They were exhausted in game 5 and Nikola Jokic just let him ease into some of those shots when they started to get more disciplined, especially late in the game. The last one that he missed was when they actually executed their scheme correctly. There's a bunch of ways that I think that he can hit the under here rather than more ways that he can hit the over. Yes, Dame is obviously one of the most spectacular guys, but I never like trying to count on guys doing this back to back. And if you go back through the history, Dame's performances in the games after he's had these big performances, not great. His points have not been all that spectacular. So I'm going to go with the under. Let's recap our bets here on Heat Check presented by BetMGM. Raheem's got the Nuggets +5. He's got Chris Paul points and rebounds under 18.5. And he's got under 33.5 for Dame time. Raybon likes the Lakers -1 first half because he's nuts. MPJ under 29.5 points, rebounds, and assists, and the over on Dame time. I like Denver Portland first half over 117.5. Booker to go under 32.5 points and assists, and I'll take the under on Dame time as well. This has been Heat Check presented by BetMGM, the Action Network. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys again next week.